Debugging the bell curve of performance ratings. A normal bell curve of distribution requires three things. Some people say that the bell curve distribution of ratings should not be used by organizations since employee performance is never random. Further, that organizations or teams which do not have a large number of employees and organizations or teams that face abnormal conditions like recession or hypergrowth should not use the bell curve. But organizational bell curves are not your typical bell curve, and hence, while the criticisms may be valid, their justification is not. Our debugging would serve no purpose if the merits of using the organizational bell curve were to be lost. Let us see what these benefits are. The first is differentiation that helps to maintain the pressure to perform and to segment employees for reward, punishment, or development. And the second is standardization that controls the deviations and biases across teams and supervisors. And now, let's see where the bugs are. Overdo the differentiation and you have a large number of people with a C rating which they don't like. Differentiate stringently for too long and you reach the tipping point of pressure beyond which the employees don't do much better, as well as get into a habit of poor risk taking and unhealthy competition. Overdo the standardization and you get opposition to the one-size-fits-all that is insensitive to the level of performance of the organization or of the team. You also have angry supervisors who had to forcibly push down the ratings of some of their people. If overdoing the good stuff causes the bugs to appear, then doing less of the differentiation and standardization should be our way forward with the debugging. Less differentiation, in other words, is just lesser rating categories. It is true that lesser the rating categories, lesser is the bite of the bugs. But it comes at a cost of giving up some degree of the benefits of differentiation. This is grey and needs a balanced judgment about if and how many the rating categories need to be reduced by. Less standardization means lesser control on rating distribution and allowing for some flexibility. It is important to remember that standardization may or may not ensure fairness across situations and teams, but it certainly limits the unfairness across situations and teams. Therefore, This too requires a balanced judgment about if and how much standardization to give up. The university system of relative ranking and grading by professors would be a good starting point to provide some flexibility to supervisors in organizations. A grades distribution guideline is used rather than a rigid distribution mandate, and outliers or deviations are monitored by the academic council even as the professors exercise some degree of self-regulation. Similarly, supervisors could be issued with a distribution guideline with some plus-minus deviation allowed, and stark outliers or deviations could be monitored by the existing ratings committee. The trick to controlling the unfairness across situations or teams lies in keeping the proportional allocation of the rewards budget constant. So if a supervisor were to rate more people as A, then each A rater would receive lesser of the budget than any A rater in another team where the supervisor has chosen to give fewer A's. To sum up, the debugging could be done using either or both of these scales. As appropriate, the rating categories could be dropped from 5 to 4 to 3. Also, as appropriate, the standardization could move from a rigid mandate to a guideline or even the most flexible multi-rater system of performance assessment. A guideline has an approximate distribution arrived at by relative ranking. The multi-rater system, on the other hand, is an absolute rating system without any distribution enforced. This, however, requires a very mature organization and a very evolved system of performance expectations and competency requirements. Let's look at two examples of how to resolve issues pertaining to rating distributions by focusing on pressing organizational needs rather than by acting on the loudest criticisms. It's really not about whether the bell curve of ratings is dead or not. It's about what serves your organization needs the best. Reach us at traininggrey.com for your grey HR and greying workforce issues.